Anna had always dreamed of having a place to call her own, a refuge where she could find peace and comfort after years of emotional turmoil. At 35, she finally had the chance to make that wish come true, though the circumstances were far from ideal. After her parents' sudden and tragic death in a car accident, Anna inherited the old family house, an imposing and lonely building on the outskirts of town. The property, with its ivy-covered stone walls and tall, narrow windows, looked like something straight out of a Gothic tale. Anna vaguely remembered visiting the house as a child, but her memories were hazy and fragmented. Her parents had always avoided talking about the place, changing the subject when questioned. Now, alone in the world, Anna saw the house as an opportunity for a fresh start, a place where she could heal her emotional wounds and build a new life. On moving day, as the moving truck drove away leaving piles of boxes in the entryway, Anna felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The air inside the house was heavy, laden with the smell of mold and antiquity. As she unpacked her things, she tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling growing in her chest, as if she were being watched. It was late in the afternoon, when the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the hallways, that Anna heard it for the first time. A soft sound, almost imperceptible, coming from the basement. It was like small hurried steps, running back and forth. Initially, she attributed the noise to her overactive imagination, fueled by fatigue and the stress of moving. After all, old houses always make strange noises, right? But as night fell, the sounds became more frequent and distinct. Anna tried to distract herself by preparing dinner in the spacious but outdated kitchen. That's when she saw, out of the corner of her eye, a quick movement. Turning abruptly, she caught sight of a fat gray rat running along the wall. Before she could react, the rodent disappeared through a small crack leading to the basement. Anna's heart raced. Rats were one thing, but there was something about this particular one that deeply disturbed her. Its eyes seemed to glow with an almost supernatural intelligence, and its movement was too fluid, as if it were gliding rather than running. The feeling of being watched intensified, and Anna felt as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for her next move. That night, Anna could barely sleep. The sounds coming from the basement seemed to increase in volume and frequency, as if an entire colony of rats was performing some kind of macabre ritual beneath her feet. But it wasn't just the noises keeping her awake. There was an oppressive atmosphere in the house, an invisible weight that seemed to press on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. By morning, exhausted and on the verge of a nervous breakdown, Anna decided she needed help. Not from an ordinary exterminator, but someone who could understand and deal with the more sinister aspect of what was happening. She remembered Lucas, an old college friend who had become a renowned paranormal investigator. Although initially skeptical of his work, Anna now found herself desperate for his unique skills. Lucas arrived early in the afternoon, his car full of sophisticated equipment. Tall and thin, with penetrating eyes that seemed to see beyond the physical world, Lucas exuded an aura of calm and knowledge that immediately made Anna feel safer. "Anna, tell me everything from the beginning," Lucas asked, as he unloaded electromagnetic energy detectors, full-spectrum cameras, and other devices Anna didn't recognize. She recounted the events of the last 24 hours, from the strange sounds to the disturbing encounter with the rat in the kitchen. Lucas listened intently, making occasional notes in a worn notebook. "And your parents never mentioned anything unusual about this house?" he asked, his eyes scanning the walls as if they could read the history engraved in the old wood. Anna shook her head. "They avoided talking about the place. Whenever I asked, they changed the subject or became visibly uncomfortable. I thought it was just because they had bad memories here, but now, I'm not sure." Lucas nodded gravely. "Old houses like this often carry stories, Anna, and not all of them are pleasant. The rats you saw may be more than simple pests. In many cultures, rats are seen as messengers between our world and the beyond, especially in places with a complicated past." He began to set up his equipment, explaining each step to Anna. "We'll start with the basement. It's usually where the energy is strongest in cases like this." The descent into the basement was like entering another world. The air grew colder and denser, and the dim light from the single bulb hanging from the ceiling could barely push back the shadows in the corners. Lucas's detectors began to beat frantically as soon as they stepped on the last stair. "There's definitely something here," Lucas muttered, his eyes fixed on the readings of the devices. "The temperature has dropped almost 10 degrees since we entered, and the electromagnetic energy levels are off the charts." Anna hugged herself, shivering not just from cold, but from fear. The basement seemed to pulse with an evil energy, and she could swear she heard whispers in the shadows, though she couldn't make out words. That's when they saw the rat. It wasn't the same one Anna had seen in the kitchen. This one was larger, its fur so dark gray it seemed to absorb the light around it. It stood in the center of the basement, its black eyes fixed on Anna and Lucas, as if daring them to approach. Lucas moved slowly towards the animal. His detector pointed forward. The device emitted a constant hum that increased in intensity with each step. The rat didn't move, not even when Lucas was just inches away. Suddenly, the rat let out a shrill squeak that made Anna and Lucas instinctively recoil. The next moment, dozens of rats emerged from the shadows, their bodies forming a perfect circle around the larger rat. The air grew heavy with the smell of mold and decay. "Anna," said Lucas, his voice tense, "we need to find the source. These rats are protecting something. Look around, search for anything out of the ordinary, any object that seems not to belong here." With her heart racing, Anna began to search the basement, trying to ignore the penetrating gazes of the rats that followed her every move. That's when she noticed, hidden behind an old dresser, a loose drawer in the wall. With trembling hands, she pulled it out, revealing a hidden space. Inside was a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed by time. Anna picked it up, feeling a shiver run down her spine the moment her fingers touched the cover. She opened the diary and began to read aloud, her voice breaking as the horrible words came to life. October 20th, 1952. What we've done is unforgivable. The children, their souls will never find peace. The rats came last night, as if they knew. They are the guardians now, the messengers between this world and the next. May God have mercy on our souls. Anna let the diary fall, horrified. Lucas, what did my parents do? What happened in this house? Lucas picked up the diary, quickly flipping through it. His face paled as he read. Anna, it seems your grandparents were involved in something terrible. The diary mentions a ritual, an attempt to gain power and wealth through sacrifices. The words hung in the air, laden with an unbearable weight. Anna felt her legs weaken, and she leaned against the wall to keep from falling. Sacrifices? You mean? Lucas nodded gravely. Children. The diary speaks of an orphanage nearby. Your grandparents, they brought children here, Anna. And the rats, they're not just animals. They're the souls of the children, trapped between worlds, unable to move on. As if responding to Lucas's words, the rats began to move, forming an ever-tighter circle around them. The air turned icy, and Anna could see her own breath forming clouds in front of her face. That's when she saw it. In the center of the circle of rats, an ethereal figure began to form. It was the silhouette of a child, translucent and flickering, like a flame about to extinguish. Its eyes, deep and sad, fixed on Anna. "Help us," whispered the ghost child, its voice echoing as if coming from far away. "Free us." Anna felt hot tears streaming down her cheeks. The pain and suffering emanating from the ghostly figure were almost palpable. "How?" she asked, her voice choked. "How can we help?" Lucas, who had been silent, observing the scene with a mixture of fascination and horror, finally spoke. "The remains, Anna. We need to find them and give them a proper burial. It's the only way to free these souls." With newfound determination, Anna and Lucas began to search. The rats, as if understanding their intentions, moved away, making way. Lucas's detector guided them to a distant corner of the basement, where the concrete looked newer, as if it had been recently redone. "Here," said Lucas, pointing to the floor. "This is where we need to dig." Using old shovels found in a nearby closet, they began to work. The concrete was thin and broke easily, revealing soft earth underneath. With each shovel of earth removed, the atmosphere in the basement grew heavier. The rats watched in silence, their eyes glowing in the dimness. After what seemed like an eternity, Anna's shovel hit something solid. Carefully, they removed more earth, revealing small and fragile bones. Anna choked back a sob as she saw the remains of what were once innocent children. "We need to give them a proper burial," Lucas said softly. "It's the only way to free their souls and break the curse that hangs over this house." In the days that followed, Anna and Lucas worked tirelessly. They contacted the authorities, explaining the macabre discovery, though omitting the supernatural details. The bones were properly exhumed and, with the help of old orphanage records, many of the children were identified. A solemn funeral was held in the local cemetery. Anna stood there, under a gray sky, watching as small coffins were lowered into the ground. She felt a mixture of deep sadness and a strange sense of closure. That night, back at the house, Anna and Lucas performed a purification ritual, guided by instructions from a medium Lucas knew. They lit candles, burned sacred herbs, and recited ancient prayers, asking for peace for the children's souls and forgiveness for the sins of their ancestors. As the last words of the ritual were spoken, Anna felt a change in the air. The oppression that had weighed on the house since her arrival began to dissipate. The rats, which had remained silent observers throughout the process, began to disappear one by one, not fleeing into holes or cracks, but simply vanishing into thin air. The last to go was the large, dark rat that Anna had first seen in the basement. It looked directly at her, its eyes now full not of malice, but of gratitude. With one last soft squeak, it too was gone. Anna fell to her knees, emotionally and physically exhausted. Lucas knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's over, Anna," he said softly. "They're at peace now." In the days that followed, the transformation in the house was remarkable. The sunlight seemed brighter, penetrating even the darkest corners. The air was lighter, carrying the fresh smell of a new spring instead of old mold. The very structure of the house seemed to stand taller, as if a great weight had been removed from its foundations. Anna decided to stay. Despite the place's dark history, she felt she had a duty to the souls who had suffered there. She transformed the property into a home for underprivileged children, a place of light and hope where once there was only darkness and despair. At night, sometimes, she still heard soft sounds coming from the basement. But now, instead of the furtive steps of rats, they were children's laughter and happy whispers. And occasionally, out of the corner of her eye, she saw not rats, but small, bright figures, running and playing through the hallways before disappearing into the light. The house, once a place of tragedy and horror, became a beacon of redemption and healing. And Anna, who had arrived seeking a new beginning for herself, found a greater purpose, ensuring that children, both living and departed, would always have a safe and loving home. This story serves as a powerful reminder that the secrets of the past, no matter how dark, need not define the future. With courage, compassion, and the willingness to face difficult truths, it's possible to transform even the most haunted places into sanctuaries of hope and renewal. Anna discovered that her journey of personal healing was intrinsically linked to the healing of the place itself. Each child she welcomed into her new home was like a ray of light, further dissipating the shadows of the past. The sound of children's laughter echoing through the once silent corridors became a constant melody, driving away any remaining vestiges of the negative energy that once dominated the environment. Over time, Anna began to research more deeply into the history of the house and the area. She discovered that the orphanage mentioned in her grandparents' diary had been closed decades ago under mysterious circumstances. Many in the town still whispered about the missing children, a story that had transformed into urban legend over the years. Determined to bring the whole truth to light, Anna worked tirelessly to connect the dots. She combed through old archives, interviewed elderly town residents, and even hired a genealogist to trace the families of the identified children. Her goal was not only to offer closure to those who had lost loved ones so long ago, but also to ensure that such a tragedy could never again occur in silence. Anna's work did not go unnoticed. Local journalists began to take an interest in her story, and soon the house that was once avoided by townspeople became a symbol of redemption and restorative justice. Families who had lost children decades ago finally got answers, and many found comfort in the work Anna was doing with today's needy children. Lucas, impressed by the transformation of both Anna and the property, became a frequent visitor. He helped install modern monitoring systems throughout the house, not to detect paranormal activities, but to ensure the safety of the children who now called the place home. However, the equipment occasionally captured unexplainable phenomena, orbs of light floating through rooms at night, gentle whispers in empty rooms, and sometimes the fleeting impression of small figures playing in the garden by moonlight. Far from frightening the children or Anna, these events became an accepted and even welcome part of life in the house. The children often spoke of invisible friends who comforted them when they were sad or scared. Anna saw this as a sign that the souls of the lost children had finally found peace, choosing to remain not as tormented spirits, but as benevolent guardians of the new generations. As the years passed, the reputation of the house and Anna's work grew. People from all over the country, and even from other countries, began to visit, some seeking answers about the paranormal, others inspired by the story of redemption and transformation. Anna always welcomed them kindly, sharing her story and the message of hope she carried. On a quiet autumn afternoon, as Anna sat in the garden watching the children play, she noticed something that made her smile. A small gray rat was sitting peacefully near a flower bed, observing the scene with what seemed to be approval. For a moment, Anna was sure she saw a glimmer of almost human intelligence in the animal's eyes. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the rat was gone, disappearing among the flowers. In that instant, Anna understood that her journey was far from over. The house, with all its complex history, would continue to be a place of mystery and discovery. But now, instead of terror and despair, it emanated love, hope, and the promise of a better future for all who crossed its threshold. Seasons passed, and the house continued to evolve. Anna established a foundation to support paranormal research and help others facing similar situations. She firmly believed that by better understanding the inexplicable, humanity could learn valuable lessons about compassion, forgiveness, and the interconnectedness of all things. The basement, once a place of darkness and terrible secrets, was transformed into a library and resource center. Shelves filled with books on local history, the paranormal, and child psychology occupied the space where once ghostly rats had run. A colorful mural, painted by the children of the home themselves, covered the wall where the sinister diary had been found. It was a vibrant representation of a world where past and present coexisted in harmony, with figures of children from different eras playing together under a starry sky. Anna never married or had biological children, but her family grew to include hundreds of children who passed through her home over the years. Many of them, now adults, frequently returned, bringing their own children to visit Grandma Anna and the house that had changed their lives. In her quieter reflections, Anna sometimes wondered about the greater purpose of all that had happened. She came to the conclusion that perhaps the universe, in its infinite wisdom, had orchestrated this series of events not only to heal the souls of the lost children, but also to create a beacon of hope in a world often dominated by fear and darkness. The presence of the rats, which had initially been a sign of horror and despair, became a constant reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Just as the small rodents managed to survive and thrive in the most adverse environments, so too could kindness and compassion flourish even in the most unlikely places. As Anna aged, she began to prepare the next generation to continue her work. She carefully selected a group of young adults, many of whom had grown up in the house, to take over the administration of the foundation and the children's home. She trained them not only in the practical aspects of management and childcare, but also in the unique history of the place and the importance of maintaining a balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. On her last night, surrounded by those she loved, Anna looked out the window of her room and saw a spectacle that filled her heart with joy and peace. In the moonlit garden, dozens of small luminous figures danced and played, their silent laughter echoing in her mind. Among them, running and leaping with childlike joy, were glowing rats, their bodies shimmering like fallen stars. Anna smiled, knowing her work was complete. She had transformed a place of tragedy into a sanctuary of hope, and in the process, had healed not only the souls of the lost children but also her own. When she closed her eyes for the last time, it was with the certainty that the legacy of love and compassion she had built would continue to flourish for generations to come. And so, the story of the House of Ghost Rats and the woman who transformed it became a legend, passed down from generation to generation. A story that reminded all who heard it that even in the deepest darkness, there is always the possibility of light, and that with courage, love, and perseverance, even the most haunted places can become homes of hope and renewal.